our headquarters is in Shanghai and Silicon Valley. So that means we step into the market in China and US. But currently, we find out that most of the information and uh, uh, the successful stories tell us we need to move into the emerging market currently. So that's why we move into the emerging market like Indonesia, like India, South America, something. I will introduce a little bit more about our logic and how we identify the opportunity in the following parts. So currently we have more than 40 portfolios in US, South Asia, India, and China. So I already listed the several ones that I want to introduce to you guys. Okay, I'll move to the next one. Sorry. So as a fund, how we make investment in the past, we make investments as a we have our own logics. So many of you may be familiar with about a fund, how to identify the investment, how to seek the opportunities. So typically, we try to find out a good company that will have good increasing in the future. And we will also do some after investment service to our portfolios. Previously, most of the successful portfolios rooted in US and China in the last decades. So typically for most of the funds, they will try to find a US or China con business model or maybe the team, typically in those mature markets, and copy and use a mature business model. And currently, most of the funds start to pivot into the emerging market, especially for those companies that using a mature market experience and move into an emerging market. I know that many companies are doing the similar things in India, like the Flipkart, Miso, those big companies. So those things are very interesting to us. We find out that there is a possibility that the opportunity is existing in the emerging market, and also the experience is from the mature market. And when we combine those two together, there will be a strong synergy that we can use and try to identify the good opportunity. And moreover, there is another thing that we emphasize a lot is about the localization. So if a company that is a very good company, they have to accumulate the local resources, and the resources well including many of the resources like the sales resource, marketing resource, local talents. So those things are very important. You need to understand your customers, local channels. So that's how those companies start a very good business from the very beginning. And also a company that's worth to be invested, also rooted in the high-speed increasing industry. So we can identify some of the industry like the commercial, like the TMT, like the biotech. Those things are very high-speed increasing industry, as we said. So that's how we identify a good company. So you have to be in a very rapid increasing industry so that your company can gain some increasing with the industry. So and then after the investment as a fund, we need to do some after investment service. So a professional fund will do this because most of the portfolios, they will need particular resource to accumulate and grow. So that's how we connect the resources to our portfolios. Sometimes we will connect the next round investors to them. Sometimes we'll connect the sales channel or marketing resources like the media to them. And sometimes we'll discuss the company's strategy with them. So this is official way that's how a fund is doing the business. We can see that in many perspectives, the situation is changing. Currently, people are pivoting to the emerging markets and into different new business models. So that's something that was to be considered in future. This is logical that our company is doing. So I almost covered most of the details about this page. So we focusing on we start to focusing on to the emerging market, and the logic is a global C strategy, and also the industrial we're focusing is into the TMT industry. So one thing need to be clarified on this page is that the go overseas strategy. So you know that in many of the countries like US and China, they use a theory called the time machine effect. This one is originally from the SoftBank, and this theory means mature business model, something like the Facebook or like Google, and you make a similar one in a new market, like Chinese Baidu comes from this logic, and Google comes to Baidu. It's just the same thing, and you use the same experience or the same business model, same technology, and build up a new thing in the emerging market. So in the last decades, most of the cross-border entrepreneurs, they try to find out they try to build up some good business model from this way, from the time machine effect. So you can see the Flipkart in India is also something that they want to build up a similar thing as Amazon in India. But this thing evolved into some other directions lately, because we find out that the original time machine effect or the time machine method is not working very well currently, because you cannot just 100% copy a business model from a company from a market to a different market. So every market situation will be different, will be various. So that's another thing that why we emphasize about the localization. You need to consider the situation in the particular market and do some adjustment to the original business model. So that's something that's worth about thinking. So you can copy a business model from a mature market, but you need to think about how you combine this with your local market and generate some new business model. So after that, I will talk about the markets we are seeking currently. So as I mentioned before, previously we focusing many of the companies that are focusing on to US and China markets, same as us. So we do the investment in China and the US for a while. But currently, most of the companies that they find out the increasing in the next decade will be in the emerging market, excuse me. Will be in the emerging market. So India is very big, South Asia is very big, and also Africa is very big. And in the future, also the global markets will cooperate a lot. And we can see that many of the big companies like Amazon, like Facebook, they expand their business to the global business. So they have customers from everywhere, from China, from India, from Africa. So the increasing is huge. So that's why every big player in the world want to seize the opportunity in the emerging markets. So do us. So we try to identify the good portfolios in the global market too. And another good thing for those emerging market is that they have the high-speed engine. They are growing very fast. So that includes the talents, as I said, and also that including the big commercial market. So young people, and they want better stuffs. They have the ability to purchase stuffs. So that means the emerging market will enjoy same increasing era as the Chinese and the US many years ago. So that's why exist many of the opportunities. And the last I already covered, the local people want better lives. You can see this is a picture about the Miniso. So I know there are different Minisos that open in India too. So in a word, India has its monumental opportunities. And also many of the players like the US funds, Chinese funds, local funds, we are all crowded currently in India to find out the good opportunities. That's a great chance for the local entrepreneurs. Okay, now move to the next page. So when we talk about a good entrepreneur, what about be a good entrepreneur? So the entrepreneurs we are seeking, this is some thinking from us, and also you guys may have some different understanding or maybe a different result, different answer to this question. So from us, we feel like that firstly, a good entrepreneur needs to understand the market and meet the customer's needs. So you need to understand which market you are working at and also who is your customers. Many of the investors, they start to build up something that from your own technology, your own ability, or your own advantage, but never consider the customer. So the first thing I would advise for the to the entrepreneurs is to understand who will be the customers for your company. How can you serve them through some particular service or some particular products, something. So everything needs to come from the customer. So you guys must read a lot of things about this too. So I won't waste too much time on that. And the second one is familiar with the rules and laws. This is very important for a cross-border entrepreneur. So for example, if you start your business in India, but later on you want to expand into like Malaysia or into Thailand, and later on you will find out that the rules and laws, the business logics are totally different in the new market. So by then you need to probably do some localization stuff. You need to find out the local staffs, local partners. You need to build up your product line with the local rules and laws. So this is something that a good entrepreneur will need to learn. At least the CEO need to take care about it. And later on, some of the thinking about your strategy or the future, something like who are you, what are you doing, where is your future. A good entrepreneurs need to identify those things very clear, and a good CEO will know where are they heading to as a team. And back to the root is the things that you do a very good business. So many of the entrepreneurs, they have very good technology, but they don't do the right thing, and their product is not a very good business, or their product is not the thing that the market needs. So I'll give an example. So last year in Silicon Valley, I met a guy from Apple. They, the Apple's manufacturer design is very strong. So they built up a team that want to do some entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley and China. What did they do? They produced a device, which is a remote controller for the cell phone. They said that use this controller, you can pivot all the things, all the applications on your cell phone to a television, and you can read TikTok or Facebook on the television with this remote controller on your television screen. So typically they are projected the things from the mobile to the television. Their device is designed very well. The touch is smoothly, and also all the controls are very rapid. But they forget one thing, that does really people need to project everything onto the television. And also many of the cell phone, they have this function already. So I would say that their technology is very strong, and their ability of the production is perfectly, but they didn't do a necessary business to the customers. So finally, they didn't raise any money at all. So back to this. So you need to find out a good business, which is there is a clear need, and there is a clear customer will buy it, and you have a very clear product or service which can be finished and have some have its price, have its time, or all the different stuffs are related to the product and the customers. Okay, so into the details, the key factors we are seeking in a company. So we look into different perspectives to identify a good portfolio. So I've already talked about the needs, the industries. So there are some examples that we put here. We can find out that some of the needs here are very hot currently, like the education. We know that education in India is very hot, and the social media it is needed all across the world. Entertainment, obviously, fintech, like the PTM, what they did. So fintech market is very hot. E-commerce, obviously. So those are the needs that's very hot in the last decades, and also some of them are very hot currently. So I only list 5 of them. You guys can add some other stuffs in. Maybe some of the industries are also very hot. Some of the needs are also very hot from your perspective. So after you identify the needs, and we move into the industries. So I list some of the examples here. So what we identified here is more detail as an industry. We didn't list the TMT as the industry. So we list a very detailed industry, like the channels promotion, advertisement, the content. So a good company that will have a direction in the particular industry, and also the innovation we already mentioned before. Before we invest into some a particular company, we will think about how we do the exit. So that means we'll consider the profit, the growth, and also the company's strategy, how to synergy from from yourself to the market, and also the partners you have. So finally, we will facing exit to everyone. So that means that as a fund, we need to exit all the portfolios either it's an acquisition or either it is IPO in the in maybe Nasdaq US or China or locally something. So this is very important. If you do not have a complete story about the exits, most of the investors will be hesitant about your story or your business. So you need to identify a clear exit strategy to them. Later on, the last one is the markets. So you need to have a starting point. Maybe at the very first beginning, everything starts from a very small point. So you know that like Amazon at the very beginning, their starting point is not like this, sell everything, you know. From the very beginning, Amazon only sell the books. So many of them may be familiar with that. And then later on, firstly, I remember that they sell the books at the magazine. They do not have an online IT platform or the e-commerce platform currently, like currently, you know. So later on, they move into like the e-commerce platform, and later on they move into AWS, new technology. They have the innovation and conquer bigger markets in the future. But from the very beginning, they will start in a very small point, a very strong need. So that's also my advice to most of the portfolios, to the startups. You guys shouldn't focusing to do everything at the very first beginning. You have limited resources, you have limited people, limited fund. So the good opportunities only exist into some small starting point. After you root it into some very strong need, and you guys can expand from it to the bigger market later on. Okay, so here I list some of the big players in India. From this part, we will try to identify some of the opportunities in India and the local market. What we talk about a little bit, what should we say? Actually, in the market, there is a debate said, what is the pro and con that doing a business in India? A con in Indian properly will be this, because you know in China, at the very first beginning, like I mentioned the example about Baidu and Google. At the very beginning time that Baidu start to grown up, Google do not have opportunity in China because it's banned by the governor. So that means Chinese company, they do not have the competitors globally. But for Indian startups, so currently India is an open market. Everyone and every country, every big giant can build up their business in India. So Indian entrepreneurs, they will face the competitors from US, from China, from everywhere. So that means more challenges. And there's someone that the third company. I'll introduce everyone. So as I said, so Indian startups, they will face the competitors from US, like the ones I list here, WhatsApp, YouTube, and from China, here is TikTok. I mentioned TikTok, UC, and this one is the shared it. I don't know whether I use the correct logo. And the last one, this one, a dinosaur, is called the Big Life. And locally, there are a lot of the unicorns already being grown up in the last couple of years, like Flipkart, Paytm, Miso, some other big companies. So this means that the market here you guys need to facing competitors from all kinds of different companies, and the situation will be more complex. And from the very beginning, you need to build up some product align with the needs and the customers very well. Otherwise, you will be vanish. You will vanish from the market very soon. Let me see what else do we received. Yeah, Tencent already expand. So later on, I'll introduce almost everyone expand their business and also their investment into India. From US, we can see that Google, Facebook, Amazon, even Apple, they move into India for different kinds of opportunities. Either they expand their own product, like Google, like YouTube, as I said, or maybe they do the investment into the local companies, like Flipkart got the investment from Amazon. So that's how they expand their business to the emerging market, to India. And also in China, ByteDance, which is the mother company of TikTok, they build up their own product in India, and also they did a lot of investment in India and South Asia too. From Tencent, I know that they invest into lots of the fintech companies in the last decade in South Asia and India. Like the Alibaba, they also into the fintech companies. They invest a lot in PTM, right? So that's the strategy, that how they expand into the local market. Firstly, maybe just invest into the local entrepreneurs, and also this bring opportunity to the local entrepreneurs that if you guys can, I think this is another benefit. If you guys can prove yourself that it is a real need and a good product, from the very beginning, you can get the investment from Chinese investor, from US investor. The money on this market is more flexible and also more efficient too. Okay. So we've already touched a little bit about the challenges in India. So the firstly, there will be international and Chinese capitals, and particularly for us. So we were facing the competitors from US, like the Sakura, like IDG, those big capitals, and for the big capitals, they were facing the same issue. That's if you draw back like 20 years in China, 20 years ago in China, you'll see that by then, many of the big players, I mean the investors in China, are also from US, like Sakura, IDG, those big companies, SoftBank, those big companies. But later on, you can see that today, almost all the investors in China are Chinese-based fund. Chinese, like the Gen Fund, like us, like many of the local Chinese fund. And later on in India, we predict that we are facing the same way. Currently, the international Chinese capitals are very active in Indian market. But later on, India will have its own ecosystem. And the guy who manipulate this market in terms of the investment will be the Indian. It will not be the foreigners. So we predict that from the capital perspective, there must be some local ones, powerful local ones, growing and took the market at the maybe in a very short time, maybe in 1 or 2 years, we will see a lot local funds growing up. And the second one, I talk about a different ecosystem. So we can say that as a big market, as China and US, India and grown up, many of the startups that are very similar to the Chinese one, US ones, but indeed it grown some of the new business models which do not exist in China and the US currently. So we can see some of the examples here, like the share chat, like OU. Those are the very good opportunities, very good business model that grown up in Indian market. So I would say that here we will have the different ecosystem, and this ecosystem is different. It will need more, particularly care from every perspective. And the last two parts is about the cultural gaps and also the reaction of the virus. So you know that for most of the cross-border companies, they were facing a cultural gaps challenge for them. So not only for the Chinese and the US companies, all the companies were facing this issue. And even for the local companies, as I said, once you expand from Indian to like South Asia, like China, to US, to the world, you are facing this challenge. And currently, I don't know how good is the situation about the virus pandemic in the past 1 or 2 weeks. Here in US, it's awful. So US, we almost freezed all the business activities. We barely go outside. So it's kind of very challenge for the market. We need to face it as a whole. So the last but not least, so finally we move into the opportunities we are seeking in India. So we pretty much cover most of them. So first, the consumer. This is definitely something that was to be focused in Indian, because the Indian have the large market. They have the largest amount of the consumer in the future. The e-commerce. Previously, one thing I want to mention here is that previously most of the supply chain of the e-commerce is from China and the US to the new emerging market, especially from China. But currently, we can see that in India, the governors start to produce their local supply chain. So I would say that the e-commerce will bring increasing not only e-commerce itself, but also into many different perspectives, like the supply chain, like the logistics. So this is embedded some very good opportunities. And SaaS, software as service. This one is very hot in US, in Silicon Valley. So in US, you can see that if you find a tiny need from a big company and start to serve some software, some tool to solve it, you can gradually move to a very big giant company. So some examples, for example, like the Salesforce, like AWS, those things moved from very tiny needs, and currently, you know that the business size of those products is huge. The education, we already mentioned that both online education and offline education. I think currently the coronavirus made a very good opportunity for the online education. Actually, everything online. FinTech obviously is very important. We start to talk about the blockchain, which connect to the FinTech, not only the payment, but also many things related to the trust, to the information. I would say that probably in next 2 to 3 years, we'll see more startups that focusing the fintech and blockchain grown up in Indian market. And the last, this is very important. We mentioned that the new business model do not exist in China and the US. So in this market, because it is big enough, so definitely there is there are plenty of the chances that good entrepreneurs can build up from the mature business model and ally it with the local needs or local habits, and then produce some new business models. So we can see more and more examples come out from it. Oil is a good one, and there are some other ones, and this is typically the ideal opportunity we are thinking in future. We hope to find out more portfolios that doing the new business model in the new market. So in the future, we already mentioned that India will have comprehensive ecosystem. There's no doubt more investors and more entrepreneurs will be there. That's also a challenge. And also the synergy among different teams. In the future, most of the team will facing a situation that they have different branches, maybe in Silicon Valley, in Bangalore, in Beijing. So this will be very common in future. The synergy among the different team, you need to meet the needs of the different team. They need to recover from the cultural gaps. So those things are a very big topic. And if you guys have any thinking, we can discuss later. And I would say that more giants will come to India in future. So currently we can see that Apple is building up its supply chain, the manufacturer factory in India. After this year, I would say that many of the important, like iPhone, some of the iPhone will move to India, and some of the iMac, I remember their production will move to India. So it's a trend. And the other company is Transcend. It's a Chinese company which is very powerful in Africa. So they built up several different brands in like Egypt, South Africa, and I know that last year they moved into India. So more giants will come to India in the future, and the ecosystem will facing more challenges and more changes. So those are all our presentation. The last thing I want to introduce is about our internship program. If you indeed want to join a global internship program with the business side from China, US, and Indian, so you can join us, and we are following the startups in Silicon Valley, in Beijing, and in Bangalore, in Indian. So if you guys want to join it, please send your resume to this email I listed here. This is our HR email. So thank you for you guys. And if you guys have any questions, it is time that we could do some discussion. Oh, you guys can type it. I know some guy typing the questions here. Do you have any current investment in India? Yes, we do. The one we have 5 portfolios that are currently doing the business in India, and some of them start from India. So from the first couple of pages, I list here. I list one company that called LoopScoop. This one is application that particularly doing their business in India. And also we invested several e-commerce companies that selling their products on Flipkart and the local platform in India. So the answer is yes. Oh, many questions. So which startup accelerators are good for early stage founders? So I'm not too familiar with the local accelerators in India, but in US, many of them like the YC and 530, 550, I'm sorry, and 500 startups. Those ones are very welcomed by the local, I mean the global startups. So I think that's something that you guys can consider. YC, which is bigger factor, profitable, break even, or growth based on investment? I would say that it varies from time to time. By current situation, you know that because of the virus and the hesitation of the investment, so in this 12 months, I recommended all of my portfolios to be profitable at first, and then after the virus gone, you guys can consider the growth later, because currently you have to survive first. So it varies from time to time. If it is a good time, you have to seize the opportunity, and you need to use the money to help you guys to grow bigger. Is there any investment for SaaS business currently? I mean, for us? So looks like that there are some many SaaS questions. So I didn't list their logo. For example, here, you guys can see on this page, on the left, the last paragraph, investment. I list Habi, Hola, Loopscoop, Hydro. Hydro is a SaaS company that we invested here in Silicon Valley. They're doing the HR service for the big companies. Typically is helping the HR to do some searching or based on the AI technologies. So their customers consist of many of the big giant companies like Amazon, Facebook, LinkedIn here in Silicon Valley. So this is one SaaS company we invested here. And also we invested into one SaaS company in New York. They are doing a system payment platform for all the restaurants in US. So we focusing on to SaaS industry a lot, because really it is very hot in US, and the ecosystem is pushing everyone to do something related to the efficient for the companies. And the local investors are more willing to invest into those companies too. So you will have good access. So that's why we focusing a lot here. Do you invest in traditional companies as well, offline companies, new age? Yes, actually, you can see that many of the we shouldn't say it's a traditional company. Many of the companies, like we mentioned here, like Miniso, like some of the commercial stuffs. We know that many good brands accelerating their development in South Asia, like in India. So I do think that those opportunities are also very good, and we are seeking the opportunities there too. Right now, are you looking for investment in India? It has been delayed according. So we're still looking for the investment, and if you looking to the whole market, the Chinese funds and the US funds are still running currently. So they are still trying to find out the good opportunities in India. But indeed, some of the due diligence or some of the communications will be delayed by the coronavirus. But I think this one will be solved maybe like 3 or 4 years. So I'm very confident about this. What do you look most in a company? Is it the long-term version will matter the most? I would say that the long-term version is very important, but it is not definitely not the most important thing for us to do an investment. As I said, as a good entrepreneur or a very good startup, the thing we focusing first is that whether they find out their own business model and the we call it the smallest product. So how to use the limited resource and the limited people to build the smallest product you guys can offer to the market. So whether they finish this round, this loop, is very important to us. So if the smallest product is a very good business, you guys can evolve eventually into a very big company, a long-term version, something. So I think it is the most important thing. What kind of new trends do you expect due to coronavirus 19 in such areas? So in this question, obviously, the situation today is that many of the companies has to move their daily operation online. So you can see that people start to have the conference call online. People need to work from home. That doesn't mean that only several business calls online. If you move your business operation online, you are facing a lot of different stuffs. You will need to process your document online. You need to control the development of a particular software online. So it's all opportunities for the startups. And what we focusing currently is that we feel like the coronavirus will eventually change a lot of the habits of people. For example, here currently in US, many of the companies trying to sell the products online. I mean the daily groceries online. So previously, this is not as fast as in China. But currently the coronavirus accelerated. So we will see that many of the needs, what we ignored in the past, will be accelerated by the virus. So same as the SaaS area, some of the needs that we do not need to emphasize in the past may need to have some better solution, better plan in future. I think I pretty much covered all the presentation and questions within 1 hour. So Joe, do we have any other schedules?
Okay, all right. Thank you, Richard. Thank you very much. I think that you have already shared a lot insights about the startup ecosystem and also the investment and also market insights. So the time is already up, and thanks for Richard and thanks for all the people who joined us today. And if you hadn't joined our WhatsApp group for startup, and so you can click the WhatsApp link in our chatting box and you can join us, and we are gonna hold more and more webinars about startup in the future. And also, if you have any further questions about today's session, you can also DM Richard in our WhatsApp group, right?
Yeah, I would say.
Okay. Okay, all right. So,
okay. Thank you, everyone. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
It's a very nice session, and see you guys next time. Stay safe and stay healthy there.
Yes, stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye.